Hello everybody, here we are today and we're going to be talking about goalie Sergei Bobrovsky and where he will end all time in wins by the time that his career is over. So before we start, please make sure to subscribe if you're new to me or hockey, whatever the case may be. That being said, let's get on into it. So Bobrovsky, otherwise known as Bob, is no rookie in the NHL. He is currently 35 years old and is a player that's nearly been able to play 700 games in the NHL and has been the starter in almost all of those. He's not been a guy that has had to be a backup for big points of his career or anything like that. Not been a guy that's had to go in there when the starting goalie's been rocked or anything like that. And has seen a lot of action. He's in his 14th season in the NHL and is obviously been able to be good in order to stick around for nearly a decade and a half in the league. Played for the Philadelphia Flyers, the Columbus Blue Jackets, and the Florida Panthers, and is somebody that has got people wondering about where his wins will be by the time that it's said and done. Well, where does he sit currently? Right now he is 18th all time and is in a great spot to move up by the time the season is over. So the guy that's 17th all time is actually a active goalie, that being Jonathan Quick. Quick had a great career in LA with the Kings and is now the backup for the New York Rangers, having a good season. But he's a guy that is not getting the starts like Bobrovsky is. So you'd have to imagine that Sergei will move past him at some point in the season. I believe at the time we're recording this, he is 7 wins behind Quick. So yeah, probably moving past him. Where does he move by the end of the season? I would argue 14th, as he would need just 14 wins over the Panthers' final 45 games to make this happen. Who would he pass in that time? He would pass Mike Vernon, Dominic Hasek, and Ryan Miller. So very interesting names there. Obviously, Hasek is a guy that we did a video over recently, winning 6 Vezina. That's pretty impressive. Miller was there in Buffalo for a long time too, and is first in some categories all time for Buffalo. That's great. Vernon obviously had stints with different teams, played for the Wings. I definitely remember that. But yeah, so some names right there where he would get to move past and be 15th by the end of this season, or in the top 15. But moving past this, you really start to wonder with Bobrovsky, where could he move beyond that? I think that the ability to move up is pretty good, considering the fact that the Panthers have him under contract for the next 2 seasons, and that really allows for a lot of things to go well. So let's just say that he wins 14 games by the end of this year. He would be at 392 wins, if I did my math correctly, which would mean that over the next 2 seasons following this season, if he was able to get 50 wins, so about 25 wins a season, which again doesn't seem that impossible with him being a starter for the Panthers, he would move into 9th all time behind Terry Sawchuk, who would be 8th, and he would be pretty close to him, again, assuming this math is all correct, which it should be. So right there you're looking at this and saying, holy cow, in 2.5 seasons, we could see Sergei Bobrovsky crack into 9th in the NHL for wins, something that I know a lot of people probably didn't expect. Now, the question then becomes, how much farther could he jump? I do believe that if the math is again correct, we should see Bobrovsky be about 20 wins away from Henrik Lundqvist. Ended up getting my tongue tied there, and we would see him maybe, just maybe, move into 6th all time. Now, will we see Bobrovsky be able to go on and crack into the top 5? I think I'm a little bit more skeptical of that because, again, you are relying on age to not really be dragging him down, injuries to not be dragging him down, and then performance to not be dragging him down, because a goalie that is old and injured and not performing is not going to be a guy that gets a great chance of getting a starter role for sure, or just getting signed in general. Maybe you get to be a backup on a bad team, but if you're trying to crack into the top 10 and the top 5 of wins all time for goalies, you're not going to be in a great spot if you're on a rebuilding team. So Bobrovsky really has a very critical period over the next 2.5 seasons. Now, is he somebody that is concerned about a lot of this stuff? I couldn't really tell you because I don't have a connection with Sergei Bobrovsky. I can't call him up and say, hey Bob, what are your thoughts on cracking into the top 5, and is that a big thing for you? However, I will say this, he has been able to be that guy for Florida for a little bit now, and while things started off rocky with them, really looks like he has been able to establish himself well with the fan base and the organization, as the recent run by the Panthers has been good, which I think is key here for Bobrovsky, because even if he doesn't have those dominant years where he's competing for the Vezina, he is still able to be there and say, well, over the past 4 seasons, the Panthers have had the best run that they've ever had in team history, where they've been able to go to the playoffs the past 4 seasons. Again, if you include the qualifying round. However, they look really poised to go back for the playoffs yet again. So their 5th straight season. Playoffs and repeating playoff appearances has not been a big norm for the Panthers in their about 30-year history. But here we are in a spot where we could be looking at half a decade of hockey where the Panthers and the Stanley Cup playoffs are linked together and being talked about. So that's big there too. Will he be able to go into the top 5 and be viewed as this all-time goalie? I would argue probably not. I do think the wins are going to be good, but I don't think at the end of the day, a lot of people will say, yeah, give me him over Dominik Hasek. I think Hasek being behind him in wins still wouldn't matter because we know that if they play in their primes that you would probably see Hasek be able to outperform Bobrovsky, but I do not want to throw any kind of shade towards Bob's way. I do still think we're going to look at his career and see 2 very pivotal stints, those being with the Columbus Blue Jackets and the Florida Panthers. Again, we talked about Florida a little bit. Going back to Columbus's time, he was able to be the starter pretty well, and able to win 2 Vezinas there and help them become a regular playoff team towards the middle to late 2010s and do some things that they'd never been able to do before, primarily being able to win in the playoffs. That was something that was short-lived. They did beat the Leafs in the qualifying round, which I don't think a lot of people included as a series win. However, they were able to kind of brush that all under the rug and say this is our official win by sweeping the Tampa Bay Lightning, the then President's Trophy winning team, in the first round. That was a huge deal because a lot of people thought Tampa Bay would go on to win the championship that year. They didn't, and while Bob's time after that was, real short, he was able to be there during some of Columbus's best days as a franchise. Again, circling back to Florida, we have seen President's Trophy, so on top of that, a division title, and then a trip to the Stanley Cup final. And I think they may have won the division title another year, maybe not. But either way, this is adding hardware to Florida's trophy case, which again doesn't have a whole lot. And I know a lot of people would say, especially for older teams, oh, wow, a division title, that's really a big deal. But for Florida fans, it probably is a big deal. To win the President's Trophy for any team is a huge deal. And to be a part of that is big. To be able to win a playoff series for the first time in years, like they did when they beat the Capitals in the first round in 2022 was big. But to be able to go to the Stanley Cup final for another chance was big as well. Did Bob have some bad games in the playoffs? Yeah, he did. But did he have some good games in the playoffs as well too? Yes. And with him being the primary starter right now and under contract for the next few years and no real heir apparent being in the woodworks because we're not really sure what's going on with Spencer Knight, I would say that Bobrovsky is in a good spot to really chase that wins category and see his legacy grow a little bit. So again, not a top 5 goalie of all time in my opinion, but somebody that has had a big impact on 2 franchises for sure, and is somebody that hopefully has a good talk about, I guess, or just a view from fans on what his career was when it's all said and done. So anyway, where do you think Sergei Bobrovsky will end all-time in wins by the time that his career is over? Let me know down below. Does he crack top 10? Does he crack top 5? Let me know. Also, please make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new. Everybody stay safe. Have a great night. And Eagle of Hockey already.
Goodbye, Brigadiers and Brigadettes. This is your captain signing off. Have a great night.